The NBA has what many are calling the best game of the season in the OKC Thunder versus the Cleveland Cavaliers, both on the court and even in the way that it was broadcast. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Plus, more of the Phoenix Suns make their opinions known on the state of the team and what could be coming up next. And the Dallas Mavericks are expected to be one of the more active teams leading into the trade deadline. Who saw that coming? We're going to get into all that and more right after this.
Welcome to the number one place for your daily basketball news and analysis, NBA Central.
What's going on, basketball fans? Welcome to another episode of NBA Central, your number one spot for everything basketball related. I'm the host, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at NBA Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content real quick for today, y'all. And the Cavaliers versus the OKC Thunder did not disappoint by any shape, form, or fashion last night. It was not only one of the best games of the season, it was handled the best as any one of the games in the season. When you look at the way that ESPN handled that broadcast, it was really good. You understood the seriousness of the moment, the seriousness of the game, the implications of the game, and the fact that it was one of the biggest draws on the NBA season, a season in which NBA ratings have been down so much. 40% I think was the last numbers that we heard. So this game was everything that it was cracked up, that it was shaping up to be. You look at the fact that a different team won every quarter in that game and went back and forth, with the OKC Thunder winning the first quarter, the Cavs winning the second quarter, the Thunder winning the third quarter, and the Cavs ended up winning the fourth quarter and the game overall 129-122. And the Cleveland Cavaliers showed and proved for a lot of their doubters that they are legitimately a championship contender. And I do look at both of these teams as huge contenders to come out of each of their conferences. Now, the chances that they both come out, we'll see what happens to that. Rarely does it work out. The number one, number two end up facing each other in the finals. There's always really a team that kind of surprises, shocks, and awe when it comes down to it. But this game did not disappoint by any stretch of the imagination. You look at the fourth quarter of this game and the balance that was struck in that fourth quarter. Evan Mobley, Jared Allen, Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell all scored between 9 and 10 points. Very big balance between that team. Karis LeVert came up big in that game as well in the second half of that game. And overall, the Cleveland Cavaliers just found their path. They found their way. They found their what they did defensively to Shai, as far as blitzing Shai, forcing him to be a little bit inefficient at times, right? And I don't know how much that is repeatable for the Cleveland Cavaliers the next time they face off against the OKC Thunder, which is going down in just a week, right? That next matchup between them is right around the corner on the docket. And that's going to be the last game between these two teams until we get into the finals, if they do end up even matching up in the finals. But this was a really, really big game and a really important one, I think, when you look at it as well, when it comes down to it. And they just performed really well in this game. Like I said, 7 points. You look at in the fourth quarter. Overall, in the second half, 7 points from Donovan Mitchell, 9 points from Evan Mobley, 10 points from Darius Garland, 10 points from Jared Allen, right? In that, Max Strus scored 8 points as well. Ty Jerome scored 8 points. So it was the balance of the Cleveland Cavaliers, and that's really what makes this team special. Now, of course, OKC Thunder fans are, of course, going to say, well, Chet Holmgren was not in that game, and he can add another dynamic in this game. And best believe he absolutely can. But I think one of the things that was definitely a story in this game, especially in the second half and overall, was Jared Allen and his effect on the boards for this team. He just was such an important part. And despite the Cavs getting out-rebounded by one on the game, Jared Allen made his presence felt throughout that whole entire game. Mike Dangholt as well after the game saying this in regards to Allen. He's a force on the glass. A lot of our foul trouble came on the glass with him. And that set us back at different parts of the game. He had a great night. Good acknowledgement, right, from the competitors that are out here. But I think that this is a reminder of just how good basketball still can be, right? When you have two teams that have the depth that they have, the balance that they have as well, right? The balance that these two teams have is really, really important. And the Cavs came out the better team. And the Cavs continue for some reason, right? And I was one of the guys at the start of the season, right? So I'm not going to separate myself from it because admittedly, I was one of the guys at the start of the season as well that looked at this Cavs team and said, yeah, this is a good team that's going to win a lot of basketball games, but I don't know if they're going to have what it takes to, because they haven't done it yet, to get over the Boston Celtics, to get past the New York Knicks. But I think at this time now, right, you can clearly see that the Cleveland Cavaliers have everything they need to compete. And I got to admit that, again, as an objective viewer of the game of basketball, I can't deny what's right in front of me. And, some people are still trying to do that when it comes down to it. I don't understand why, right? Because if you're being objective and you're really trying to just review what's in front of you as far as the game of basketball, you can't really deny that this is a Cleveland Cavaliers team that's sound. And keep in mind, they're still doing it without Donovan Mitchell needing to show up and be this huge scorer for them. Donovan Mitchell scored 11 points yesterday. 11 in a game that was one of the marquee games on their season, period. And that shows you the balance that they have because, listen, we all know that Donovan Mitchell has a different gear that he can go into. And if you're able to get through this season and Donovan Mitchell doesn't have to turn that on as much and he has more in the tank to turn it on in the playoffs, because as we know in the playoffs, basketball becomes different. And it is a completely different season. In a lot of ways, it's a completely different game. And so when you need in the playoffs Donovan Mitchell to go nuclear, to go off, or whatever you want to call it, he still has that ability that he can dig into the chest and pull that out. So that is a huge positive for this Cleveland Cavaliers team. But let me be clear here. No knock to the OKC Thunder because they were competitive in this game. And I think if you play the same exact game, right, 4 or 5 times, you're going to probably get a different winner every single night because that is the level of competition that these two teams have. And these are two teams that are the toast of their conferences for a reason. And I, for one, look at this game and I say, kudos, NBA. Kudos, NBA, for the way that you handled this. The fact that this was the game and everybody really seemed, like I said, from the broadcast to the players, they understood the importance of this game and how this game was going to be viewed, and it did not disappoint by any stretch of the imagination. But, of course, you guys can let me know how you feel down below. With that said, for two teams that are clearly on their path to hopefully go far into the playoffs, the team that's trying to find their way, right? And that's the Phoenix Suns. And the thing is with the Suns is that they are just such a mixed bag team, right? They got that initial win after Bradley Beal got moved to the bench, in which he had a really good game in that first game getting moved to the bench. And then it got back to business as usual for the Phoenix Suns. And unfortunately, business as usual for them thus far in the season is losing a lot of games. They right now are the 12th seed in the Western Conference, out of even the play-in. I don't care what injuries they're dealing with or anything like that. That's disappointing for a Suns team that has talent. We know that this team has talent on it. And unfortunately, it's just it's not really showing up in the way that figuring out in the way that I'm sure that GM and that team hoped it would be when it put together this collection of talent and has a almost $280 million tax bill is what they have, right? So their last loss against the Charlotte Hornets, which happened on Tuesday, they played tonight against Atlanta, left a sour taste in the mouth of Devin Booker. And Devin Booker came out and said this, right? You can't have that. The vibes and communication being high, when we have it rolling and things get going well, and then when we get in a tough spot, we just fold. I just want to see the energy. Energy and effort are high no matter what the score is. Just keep playing, right? And that's coming from Devin Booker, who is the player that really this thing was all built around, right? And so the thing is, it's a reminder for the Sun for the sense that this Suns team is just a disappointing team, right? And they got to find a way to get it together. And Bradley Beal, as far as the law saying we can't do that. We can't do that. It's a tough one. We definitely took a step back. They got to get it together. They got to get it together. The Hornets were riding a 10-game losing streak before getting this win over the Phoenix Suns. You cannot have that if you're a team that wants to turn around your season. But, of course, it's met with its own turmoil, right? Because now, you got players moved to the bench, which, of course, is leading to a lot of speculation on what their future is. Now, Yusuf Nurkic came out, and he said that he talked to the leaders of the Phoenix Suns. He said this: we talked as far as communication between team owner, general manager, and the CEO. They were completely transparent that they not looking to shop us or whatever. But also, we're not kids. We understand that this is part of the job. There's nothing you can do, at least in my situation. I don't control these things, but I understand this happens almost every day, every year, especially this time of season. You can see any name, just not myself, might not necessarily be a bad thing or a good thing. I believe they'll handle it properly and be honest about it. But even if it happens the way we don't want it to happen, fine. It's business. Ain't no hard feelings. And that's what it got. And that's the right mindset that you want a player to have, right? I've said it before. Teams, when trade talk and speculation, if it starts throwing off the chemistry of your team, that's a bad place to be. It just is, because once that starts, because the players are always going to be in trade speculation, right? That's just how it goes. Whether it's legitimate noise or not, it's always going to be around. But the Phoenix Suns, when you look at it, over the last 5 games of the season, they have a negative 4.8 net rating, which is 23rd in the NBA. They have a 110 defensive rating, which is 25th in the NBA. I'm sorry, offensive rating, which is 25th in the NBA. They actually have a 115 defensive rating, which is 16th in the NBA, right around middle of the pack. 23rd in true shooting percentage, 24th in effective field goal shooting percentage. This team is struggling. And when you take that back further to go look at 10 games, negative 7.3 net rating, 27th in the NBA. 25th in offensive rating, 24th in defensive rating. It's just things are not going the way that the Phoenix Suns hoped they were going to go. Them right along with the Kings have to be on the pace for some of the most disappointing seasons so far based off what the talent that they have on the team in the case of the Phoenix Suns. And then as far as the Sacramento Kings, based off how their season finished last year. And it's funny that both these teams sit at 11th and 12th in the Western Conference respectively. And this is not a good place for this team to be. And a lot's been made of the Phoenix Suns basically right now are the poster child for why you want to avoid the second tax apron. They just are, right? They have no ability to move, right, for real. They can only trade one player in a trade deal. They're going to lose their mid-level exception this year. They're not going to have that. So there's so many things that is going against this Phoenix Suns team. And then the player that they could move in Bradley Beal that reportedly could net them something back because of the size of his contract and whatnot, they can't even move that. They can't even move that. And that's a problem. And that's where a lot of teams are going to be looking. And when we hear things like teams are terrified of the second tax apron, you might as well put a picture of the Phoenix Suns logo on the wall because that's why. They have an estimated tax bill of $188 million this year and $211 million the year after that. That's huge. That's what their bill is. That's just what they're paying in luxury tax payments. And for that, what do they have? They have a team that has no forward mobility, right? They don't own their own first-round pick this year. It's going to Houston, right? You have your own first-round pick next year in 2026. So I guess if this continues past the season, all right, you got that to look forward to. That's a deep draft as well. But you don't even have that. A team like the Pelicans, at least, have their own first-round pick, even with their disappointing season, and that they can do that and pivot their whole franchise, right? And then you look at the other disappointing team in the season so far, the Sacramento Kings. Like, the Sacramento Kings, at least, still have actually one of the better offenses in the NBA. That's why it's so crazy that they aren't able to win games at a better rate, because they still do have some of the best offensive numbers in the league. So if you want to bet on that, then cool, right? Maybe that can be something that can push them forth to get to the next level. But when you look at the Phoenix Suns, they don't have anything. The Kings as well. When you look at the Kings, on top of that, if their season does and their pick is only top 12 protected to the Atlanta Hawks, they can end up keeping their first round pick this year. The Phoenix Suns don't have that. Their pick is conveying one way or another. The Phoenix Suns are literally in the worst possible situation for an NBA franchise in the modern era, period. That's not hyperbole. That's it. They don't have the flexibility to make a bunch of trades. They can't add players via exceptions in the offseason, so they can't add to that, which is something that teams well over into the luxury tax used to at least be able to have at their disposal, right? Some of their, it's just they don't have anything coming unless Bradley Beal decides to bail them out and waive that no trade clause that's going to improve where they're at. And that is a problem. And so overall, we'll see where the Phoenix Suns end up going with all of this. I mean, if they can find their way out of it, great. But if not, they're going to continue to be what teams look at and say, we don't want to be the Phoenix Suns. And that's why we're being a lot more conscious of how and where we're spending our money. Let me know what you guys think on that down below. The next thing that I want to talk about before we get up out of here today is a surprising team may actually be pretty active in the trade market, right? And that is the Dallas Mavericks. According to Brian Windhorst, the Mavericks have been one of the most active teams on the phone so far this trade season. And saying this is that Harrison is not going to settle for mediocrity. And to the surprise of many Mavericks fans, the team is looking to will and deal as much as anyone ahead of the second half of the season. Now, we know that they have recently lost Kyrie Irving, adding that to already losing Luka Dončić. Now, the Dallas Mavericks still sit right now at the number 5 seed in the Western Conference. They won a game. They're 4-6 in their last 10, though. And while this team could sit around and wait till Luka Dončić comes back, to then Kyrie Irving coming back, this team is focused on still improving the team if they can. And, there's something commendable about that. I don't personally think that they have to make a move. I think that they have a lot of depth right now. But I think overall as well, like you're looking at this and you're saying to yourself that there's something commendable about a team that looks at their situation and says, if we can get better, we want to get better. Regardless of where we are, regardless of where we sit, if we can make a deal that makes us a better team, we are all for taking that deal, being aggressive about going out there and improving. Now, they have to walk a tight line here, right? Because you can very well find yourself trying to make a deal that on paper is going to improve your team and actually ends up disrupting the chemistry that you've built with your players. And that is a cautionary thing that I think every team needs to look at regardless of where they are in every deal. So it's not really exclusive to the Dallas Mavericks. But when you look at it, the Mavericks do have their own first-round pick in 2025. They have their own first-round pick in 2022. They have a pick swap available with the OKC Thunder in 2028. So the Dallas Mavericks have some some draft capital that they can use to improve themselves. You also look at where they are with some of their salary cap situations and things that they can move that they can. Do they want to use the $11 million of Maxi Kleber to move? They don't need to move Najee Marshall. I don't want to see that happen, right? But Quentin Grimes, they still have on their team, right? So they have an opportunity to make a move to improve their team if the right deal presents itself. And while you see some teams sitting on their hands, my team like the Chicago Bulls, that done so in being in mediocrity, this is a team in the Dallas Mavericks that are basically saying, hey, we're going to do everything it takes to make sure that our championship window stays open while we have Luka, and we're trying to improve every step of the way. And I'll tell you what, there are a lot of NBA players that wished their franchise had that same mindset, regardless of where their team sits in the standings. And so we'll see if it ends up working out for the Dallas Mavericks. If they make a move, if they decide to do something, great. We'll see what happens there. They have that opportunity in front of them, and we just got to see if they can find the right deal that can improve their team even further. Do I think they need to be extremely aggressive? No, I'm not saying that. But I do think that if that deal presents itself and it's a deal that they can go after without really gutting the team and hurting their chemistry, what's the harm in doing that? At least on paper. So we'll see what that leads to. But thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you guys are always, let me know how you feel on everything down below. We want to get more interaction here, so make sure you guys sound off on how you feel down below. Make sure you guys are following the show at NBA Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. NBA Central Show @gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and or voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the #1 spot for everything basketball related, but that's thanks to you lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, I'll see you guys the next time I feel like making a video. Tomorrow. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Breaks Media.